My name is George Bina. I'm also one of the founders of Syncrosoft, the company that develops Oxygen. And as Octavian started the presentation, we basically, in 2001, we started to develop a simple XML editor, but in time, we ended up with, with a complete suite of products around XML and covering not only XML, but also some related technologies that also deal with structured content, like you've seen with the JSON and YAML and Markdown. We also support Markdown. And we kind of try to see, a bit from above and try to provide, in a way, a similar level of functionality, no matter what the actual format is, right? Because even for Markdown, we provide schematron validation. So that's, like a unique feature that Oxygen provides for Markdown editing. You don't find that in other tools. So even if you use Markdown, you can still constrain that or be able to match some patterns and detect if the document matches your expectation or not. Also, for JSON, we provide schematron validation, visual editing, and all the functionality, basically almost all the functionality that we have for XML is layered also on top of JSON. Because in the end, I don't know if the specific way of serializing or encoding the structure matters that much. Important is to have the information in a structured way and associate somehow a meaning to that, right? So we can be able to reuse or use it for more interesting applications. And now, as you also seen with the AI advances, which are really came quickly, we invested a lot in developing the AI support that you've seen in Oxygen. And as you've seen, this is not just a chat, but it's more than that, because integrating with the XPath functions, we bring this to all different places where you can use XPath. Even in CSS, I think you can use that. From the CSS, we have also, that's also one of the important things with Oxygen. Our CSS engine has an XPath extension function, which is very powerful because everything that you do with that, you can access any parts of documents. You can combine different content from anywhere in the document. We plan, so talking about our plans, we plan to extend, and we have weekly brainstorming sessions where we discuss ways in which we can take advantage of this AI functionality and try to keep users in control in a way, because still it's not at the level where you can trust everything. So the information or what you get from an AI engine needs to pass through a filter that we say it's okay or not. Because even I was fooled a number of times in a very subtle ways. Like I was careful enough, but it still is not there to put it directly in front of end users, I think. It still needs to pass through some filter, and in a way it's a good thing, let's say, for us, because we are, or also for technical writers and for people that work in this domain, because there is still a lot of need for people in this process. If it worked, completely perfectly well, then we will be out, right? So it's not a bad thing that there is still some need for these additional checks or review. But there are, of course, a number of ways in which it's very helpful, and that's why what we are doing to analyze this. So one idea, for instance, is to allow the AI to do a bit more, to find the context, by providing some functions that the AI engine can decide to call whenever it needs to. to find, you know, like Radu presented, you have editor variables to pass the selection, the document, and so on. But this can be reversed. So you don't need to pass anything, and the AI engine knows that if it thinks that he needs the selection, he could call a function to get the selection, or the document, or maybe the project structure, or the data map keys, or whatever, right? So that's the next step that we are working on, for instance. Then we integrated this with the desktop tools, with the WebAuthor, but it makes sense to be, and actually it's integrated also, but it's we added support for in our documentation. We extended the Oxygen feedback to so if you are on a topic, you see you have this AI assistant, and it provides it's called RAG, response augmented. Radu, can you help me? So it's a chat based on the documentation that you published,
Retrieval
right?
augmented generation.
Yeah, exactly. Retrieval augmented generation. Because the Oxygen feedback is not only a commenting platform, it also was enhanced with a search to act as a search engine and provide semantic search and keyword search. And being a search engine and already having access to the where you install it, a set of documentation, or it can be installed actually on any HTML content, as long as you have like a sitemap file that shows, you know, includes what are the HTML files that needs to be indexed. You can enable the search part, and we enabled for now we enabled this only for our documentation. So you can, if you go on our website, you can try it. If you have a question about Oxygen, you can just click on the AI part and, you know, try to discuss with that, because the responses will be based on our documentation. And so we included this as a beta preview on our own documentation, but the plan will be to extend it also to the users of feedback, so they can enable that also for their own content. And then there are interesting things where we can go with the AI, like for feedback you can have moderated moderation, so the comments needs to be approved, and we already have the AI engine integrated there, so it may act as an automated moderator for comments to approve them, to see that they are not, you know, spam or something like that, and just approve them without a person. Also, the next thing will be to try to provide an answer to a comment if possible, with techniques like you know, how it's called, when you not reinforcement, but when you get an answer and you challenge it to see, you know, is the answer really responding to the question, right? So these kind of things may work already, and maybe the answers will be moderated, so you just get the proposal and the moderator can just accept the response, let's say. So there are, the AI part will work also very nicely in Fusion, in Content Fusion, because when you have a review task, one of the reviewers can be an AI reviewer that can propose different corrections or different things to rephrase something that may come as a proposal, right? So as you see, there are so many ideas and so many possibilities to include the AI functionality in Oxygen, and Tavi is working, Octavian, we call Tavi, he and his team are working hard to put much of the AI part also in the development part of, so when you work with XSLT, with Schematron and so on, but for that we need these functions to provide more context information, so the AI engine will know which functions you have defined, let's say in XSLT, so they can be called, so the fragment that you get will not be only generic XSLT, but something that has to do with your style sheet, for instance, with your actual style sheet, and so on. So that's one direction, let's say. Yes? I see. I think so. If you have a question at any time or some ideas, just raise your hand. I will immediately notice that. Another idea is because it's interesting also with we explored also ways of working with content or managing content, and there are a number of ideas that we as a community, I think we need to work together at some point to make it easier for people to use structure and content. Why? Because I think we are still at a point where we do not provide larger building blocks for people. I mean, Radu presented earlier the data support that we have, and that's well connected and ready to use. But I think there is still need for, we have only the bricks in a way, in many cases. And people need to figure out how to build, real buildings, huge buildings, and so on. And they need to make all the mistakes again and again. It will be really useful to have larger building blocks, so you can just assemble them together more easily. I mean, we are missing, for instance, for XML, there's no dependency mechanism. So you can reuse content, but you cannot say this content is like a library and I just want to reuse it, but version 3 of that. We do not have that. And without this kind of support, I think we are kind of lost in a way, because so there is still need to build for XML, I think, more support. So Bogdan presented Content Fusion. Content Fusion may try to provide some of that, and the main advantage with Content Fusion is that the content remains on your Git repository. It just mirrors a Git repository and acts like yet another client for that repository, yet another Git client for that repository. So the difference, let's say, between a content management system and Fusion is that the content remains external to Content Fusion in a way. He acts as a client for that Git repository. So you still own the content itself. It's still yours. It's like, in a way, if you think, it's like the standard formats like XML versus a proprietary format, right? The content remains yours. It's your repository with your content. Fusion it's yet another client. You can use many clients and also Fusion to access that. But then you have all these advantages with concurrent editing, being able to share content with others, and as Bogdan mentioned, we are working on allowing to edit content. That means we imagine when you start to modify the content, that means you create a workspace on that branch, let's say, where you can make changes. You see the changes compared to what's on the branch, and then you may decide to commit. It's like the local working copy that you have from a Git repository that will be created automatically when you start to modify the content on a branch. So that will be an interesting development, I think, for Content Fusion, and will allow to move a bit more in the browser or without installing software, more accessible, let's say, somehow. And in the same time, this idea of allowing you to own the content because you are in control of the Git repository, and also to reuse already existing tools that you have for continuous integration and so on that are already connected to the Git repository, for example. We also moved a lot. Tavi's team also worked on making the diff support to be able to batch process content and obtain a report with all the changes, or even the content marked with tracked changes. So that may help your use case when you can just, so if you want to review only the changes made between two versions, you can obtain, let's say, compare the current version with the previous one, and you obtain a version of the content that marks with track changes everything that changed since the previous version. So then when you send that to review, or you may publish that as webhelp, the webhelp and the PDF transformations also can highlight the tracked changes. So you can have a published version or even the source version with all the changes marked as tracked changes. So people can review in Oxygen feedback if you publish that with webhelp with track changes, and they can see the changes highlighted from the previous version, so they don't need to find what was actually changed. But in our case, we do not need really this, because why? When we update the content, we integrated this into our Jira workflow, because the documentation does not just change. It changes in response to a change in the product, which is recorded in Jira. So after that change to the product is applied and is verified, reviewed, code review, QA tested, and so on, it goes to the documentation team. And they use the same issue ID in the commit, which means that we can obtain all the modified topics and we inject the message automatically inside the same Jira issue. And our engineers or subject matter experts, the people that modify the product, can review exactly the modified parts that were, so the documentation has some changes generated by that issue, and they can verify them. And in this way, the review process is incremental. They can see the diff, because the WebAuthor also provides visual diff support. The edit, they can go and edit, as that edit link that Radu showed. In the same way we build the edit link, you can build a diff link. So the main power, let's say, for the WebAuthor is that you can integrate it just by using a URL in different places. Like that edit link, you can place that in any HTML or PDF. So you can publish PDF or HTML, and you can have an edit link that points to the source of the topic. And in the same way, you can have a diff link, because these are just, you have a base URL where you have the WebAuthor installed, and then you have parameters like the URL of the file that you want to edit, and you provide a URL to the file in GitHub, let's say. Or if you have diff, you say which is the common ancestor, which is the left, which is the right. And then the WebAuthor will show a diff, three-way diff, for instance, that will show those files, those versions of the files. So it's very useful in this way to integrate it in different workflows. Because, if you think of the web editor just like a desktop editor, but you open the browser, that's one way of think about that, but that's not powerful, I think. The real power comes from being able to follow a link and get to the web editor, or to the diff, or to different places. Yeah, on the other hand, the main products like the Oxygen XML editor, I think it's quite mature now, but we are still developing because our release cycle is like one major release per year. We moved some of the development into plugins because we want to release quicker. That's why also the AI support is created as a plugin, and we also changed a bit for this product. We started to think more in terms of deciding on a new functionality, and as soon as we implement that, we release. So this is what we've done for feedback, for Fusion, for Positron, for the AI Positron, and so on. So we try to be even more agile, more get the functionality quicker to our users, and so on. Now, many of you, I think, are using already some parts of our tools, right? Do you feel the need for something? Do you think that something, you want to do something but it's not there and you wish to be there? Is there anything like, you know, like, if I would have this, because I have this all the time and I send you like ideas. Yes.
We were wondering about a search function through different or through multiple Webpack packages.
Mm-hmm.
So, to my understanding, it's only possible to change to search in one package at a time for now. And yeah, do you have any plans to change that?
Yes, it's we have actually plans to be able to merge multiple web-help output when you generate web-help for multiple versions or multiple products, to be able to integrate them together, let's say.
Yeah, that's exactly what we are looking for, because one package would be one version, and we would like to have different versions next to each other, and be somehow able to search overall. Like,
mm-hmm. I think as a workaround, if the search, if you delegate the search to the Oxygen feedback, it may be possible, because the Oxygen feedback acts also as a search engine, and if you it will index resources from a base folder, let's say base URL. It will index everything. So if you provide the base a bit up, that includes all the versions, it may index everything.
okay.
So that may be one way. Let us think more about that. But it's still it's on our roadmap. Mm-hmm. To be able to provide this, how to call it, when you publish multiple web-helps, to have a unified interface that combines all of them, and maybe when you search on something, it's just the version different, you have a drop down, you can switch to a different version or something like that. This is what we imagined. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. A question, I don't know if this can be solved. Our XML files becomes greater and greater, and the data from the customers want to have more data, and we have really problems to debug scripts with files, XML files, then they are greater than 200 megabytes. And for this we use other editors. is it possible to make it more with more performance or something else? I know you have to pass the tree before you can display it, but the issues, the XML files becomes greater, and with 100 megabytes, it's not really possible to really work in Oxygen. From my point of view, I'm not sure. This is really an issue that we have. I'm not sure if this.
I know that Radu worked a bit on this. Yes.
Yeah, I worked on the huge file editing support, which allows you to open an XML and see it in chunks of content. I'm not sure why those XML documents grow that large. Why you don't break them in multiple documents in a way. So
yeah, we're not working with documents at the moment. We're working with, especially with knowledge graphs, and then you have a large amount of data when you have get all from the graph, and it makes really big files. And when we have problems, then we use another editor to browse and to search, and it will be really helpful when you collapse it and can collapse it.
But I think that huge file mode needs to be enabled or something.
it's
Not
enabled
full
by-
functionality with this mode.
Yes, it doesn't have full functionality. So when you search, it searches every chunk. It doesn't display the entire content. You need to go through the chunks. So it avoids loading the entire document, basically. Because that's its purpose, not to load the entire document so that the application runs fast.
Yep. We don't work in with documents, and at this point we can say that this knowledge and this is not knowledge. We need it in the whole package, and this is really a problem that we have.
Well, maybe you can split it with X-include or something like that. You know. Maybe.
The semantic a net. It's not really to okay, you can't slice it. Then you lose the.
Maybe if the customer has to pay for every gigabyte in memory in the cloud, they are more sensitive to the change in the architecture.
I'm not sure if somebody else has a problem.
Yes, we did, and there are the answer for it. XSLT processing of streaming processing. That's the design which should be in place of XML editor streaming.
Then I have other problems with streaming. I can't do the same operations that I do in the normal
Question, how valuable is solution for you?
Pardon?
How much money you willing to pay for the solution?
I'm not sure. I have 2 or 3 developers on it,
So 3 developers for 3 months.
Pardon?
3 developers for 3 months. Okay, so that's an answer.
So what Radu mentioned, the huge file support that we have does exactly something similar with the streaming, but it chunks the document, and it's more than streaming because streaming goes one way. So this is like a streaming, but you can also go back with the chunks. You know, like yeah, streaming also does chunks because at some point you can say, I want this part to be in memory. So streaming XSLT also does kind of chunks. So it's similar, but as streaming in XSLT, it's not the same functionality. You cannot move freely as you do for a small document. So that was the problem. So
Okay, I have a really simple complaint. We're checking in the XPR files so that different developers can benefit from additional transformation scenarios and so on if they take up the project that was kind of laying in the repository for a month or a year or whatever. But XPR files are really not happy to, if you check the delta and you, for instance, you changed 2 transformation scenarios or just change the name or change the order, the delta, the diffing by Git doesn't give you useful information about change because it's so abstract in the XML of the XPR file. So that is, whether we have to live with it or is this something that you experience yourself?
So we have some settings which, when you check them, the XPR will stop getting modified that often. Because sometimes people, they don't really want to make changes to the XPR, they just open a transformation scenario, they apply it, and then they have the XPR outgoing in the mid staging.
We already, some years ago, you showed us that we kind of, in the file association, we already have that deactivated. That's not the problem. But all the transformation scenarios are huge blocks of XML, and whether you change just the net, they are compared in order and not based on the semantic. So that is a little bit annoying, so to say. We still prefer to check them into Git, so nevertheless, so the last check it wins, so whatever it is.
Can you tell me again about your 200 megabyte problem? You want some kind of visual different thing for the scenarios.
Or refactor the XPR into different parts.
Yes, or if we serialize that in a different way, because if you said that it mixes the order, and sometimes if you create a strict order all the time, then you get that, like if you don't care about the order, I mean maybe in any order, the easiest way is to sort both and compare. Maybe we can make a note and check if we can improve something on that.
Yeah, I think we are at the end. Well, 10 minutes after the.
Oh. Okay, then thank you for staying with us and for your questions, for your feedback. You also have some feedback forms. We really appreciate that. So even if you maybe didn't want to say it out loud here, maybe you can write it. You can also keep them with you if you don't want to write it now, and just bring them the following days to, we will have a stand in the conference, so you can just drop it by. We'll be happy also to talk more with you during the following days. And thank you again, and enjoy XML Prague.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.